Welcome to the Men's Mental Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Daniel Bates, licensed professional clinical counselor, educator, researcher, and longtime advocate for men's mental health. Each episode, Dr. Bates unpacks the science of men's mental health, from addiction, help-seeking, and male depression to culture and masculinity. You'll hear interviews with leading scholars and candid conversations with everyday men who've struggled and overcome, with insights drawn from Dr. Bates' 15 years of clinical practice serving men in Kentucky and Ohio. Whether you're a professional, a partner, or a man searching for practical tools, this show delivers evidence-based strategies you can use right now. No jargon, just real talk. Let's redefine what real strength looks like. Let's dive in.
You know that game in high school where you had to choose a superpower? Would you have flight or invisibility? It was kind of this moral question. The people who chose invisibility, they were kind of creepy. And the people who would fly maybe were risk takers. I don't know. In all reality, if I had to choose a more reality-based superpower, I think the superpower I would actually choose is the power over my own mind. That is, if I'm feeling something or I'm thinking something, I can choose different ways of thinking and feeling. I can set my mind on certain goals and tasks and not get distracted. Wouldn't that be an amazing superpower? Anybody else want that superpower? Anyway. So if I were to try to actualize that superpower in real life, not in the fantastical sense, but maybe a more reality-based sense, it's actually kind of hard to do because it's very hard for us to conceptualize our inner lives or our inner worlds or the workings of our mind. If you put someone's brain in a brain scanner, you can see the structure of the brain. You can see, using an fMRI, you can see brain activity. But that doesn't really tell us too much. I mean, I can see where blood flow goes after a certain stimuli. It's kind of a black box. Neuroscience is a very fraught science. I like it. I personally love neuroscience, but it is rife with legitimate criticisms of the kinds of interpretations it's coming up with its data. So all that to say, it's really hard to conceptualize our inner lives. It's really hard to conceptualize our thought life. So when I'm talking with clients and they also kind of share the same interest I have in a superpower over one's own mind, I have to go to metaphors. I have to go to analogies, the inner workings, so that the client is more empowered over their thought life and they can choose different options that produce better outcomes. That's the goal. That's the point, right? And if I had that reality-based superpower, that's what I would want. I just want more control and power over my choices and my thoughts so I can achieve better goals for myself and those around me. Who doesn't want that? So here's one metaphor I want you to consider using. There's a lot of different metaphors. And I think I've talked about in previous videos different metaphors, so check that out. But here's one metaphor. So imagine yourself sitting in an auditorium, and on the screen, well, there's a stage and a screen, and on the screen are your thoughts. The thoughts come from stage right. I'm not a stage person. Forgive me. Okay, sorry. So let's say the thought comes stage right? You're in the audience. You're watching the screen. Yeah, the thought comes stage right. It's passing across the screen, and it has the option to fully cross over to stage left and leave your conscious awareness. That's one way of analogizing or thinking of a metaphor of how thoughts come into your conscious awareness. And then as the thought is passing across the screen, maybe it's, you're in the audience and you're like, wow, look at that thought. That's really powerful. It seems true. The moment you identify that thought as that's true, that's reality, and look at it, it's so gripping. I can't let the thought fully pass from stage right to stage left. The moment you do that, you attach to the thought, and then it becomes you, right? And so there's a model of therapy called ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. It has this technique called cognitive diffusion. And essentially the main point of the intervention is to allow for some psychological space between you and the thought. And, if you carry this out to its logical extension, maybe we're kind of inducing psychosis or schizophrenia or something like that. So don't go too far with this. Obviously, if it's in your brain, it's part of you. but I'm just trying to empower you through the use of this metaphor and not send you into a psychotic state. So with that caveat said, imagine the thought coming stage right, passing across the screen or across the stage, and then you have an option and to say, I notice myself thinking about X versus I'm thinking about X or X, right? I'm angry. I notice myself feeling angry, or I notice myself thinking I'm a loser. That's very different than saying I'm a loser. I notice myself thinking I'm a loser. I notice myself feeling angry or self-hatred or self-criticism. And that microsecond of psychological distance between you and the thought gives you the opportunity to say, do I want this thought to keep walking across or progressing across from stage right to stage left? And once it makes stage left exit, it's gone. And then I can redirect my thoughts to things that are more life-giving, positive, that build me up, build others up, and take me further towards my goal. Now, wow, if you can do that, I feel myself. I feel the superpower flowing through my veins, right? That's the superpower I want to give you. And that's the superpower I work on myself. Now, I've got a bunch of other different metaphors and analogies. So don't feel the pressure to do my metaphor, my analogy. Again, I'm just trying to analogize our inner lives that are really hard to conceptualize. We don't necessarily have a great science on it yet. We have a very mechanistic science of neurochemicals, neurons, brain activity, blood flow, etc. But we don't really have like this happened in the brain and produced this thought. We don't have that level of that science yet. Maybe we'll get there. So find the metaphor that works best for you. That's my metaphor. I enjoy it. I like having the fun element in the metaphor. Something that I think rings true has to be an element of the metaphor. It has to ring true, and you have to be able to relate to it and find something stimulating about the metaphor. So me being in the stage, I love the movies. I love theater. I love sitting in the audience, watching performances. And then the stage right, stage left, screen, stage. I get all that, right? That just tracks in my brain. Find what tracks for you. Some of the other ones, the surfer, the boxer, improv, the parasite. I think I'll get into all those metaphors down the road, but cycle through maybe an index of metaphors, try a couple on, test some out, and see what fits best for you so you can start actualizing that reality-based superpower of control over one's own thoughts.